So I have to say, this episode of Tomo-chan is a Girl might just be the best out of the 5. Not only do we get to see all of the parents of our favorite trio, all with their own quirks and characteristics, but they literally made a baby joke in this episode. I was not expecting Tomo's mother for her reaction maybe to be quite as understanding. I thought maybe it would go in the we need to have a talk about the do's and don'ts when you're alone at a boy's home, but no. Instead, when she hears her little girl is going to be sleeping over at June's place for the night, she just says, "I'm gonna be a grandma." And I'm like, okay. No wonder our girl storms off and tells Dad next, who has the most normal of reactions, but man, this show doesn't miss. There was some quality jokes in this episode, and honestly, just when I thought I couldn't like it more, I thought the highlight of the episode would be Carol's mother and that entire dynamic, but it just didn't miss. Easily the best episode for me, and hopefully I'm not alone feeling that, but I do have a full live reaction to today's episode available on my Patreon, so if you want to see that, consider supporting, but this was great. I mean, we're almost halfway through the season. It's kind of crazy because, I mean, a lot of shows are still just kind of getting into the groove of this season, but this one, honestly, it just feels like a short and sweet story, and because the manga is a shorter story, the fact that we can actually get a well-polished, well-produced, and thought-provoking show that doesn't try to stretch the joke for too long, the show is going to be an absolute classic, I feel like, in terms of recommending even 10 years from now, because even though on paper a lot of the formulas I've seen before, the execution of all these little ideas, honestly, I can't find myself comparing to a lot of shows in a similar genre or even a similar ballpark. Carol's mother, though, was definitely a surprise. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a sister or a mother. Sometimes it's hard to tell in anime in terms of they either make the parents look like they could be grandparents or they're so young they could be siblings. But the mother was basically like, okay, honestly, I just fear what Carol's great grandkids are going to look like, because we can already see that Carol's mother, she has some wires loose as well, and Carol has those loose, and it feels like every time they have a kid, it just feels like they become more alien. I keep saying it, I'm convinced Carol is just an alien in a human suit. She is definitely built different, as seen by Tomo getting flustered whenever she gets hugged by her. And honestly, the fact that she also got flustered when Carol's mother hugged her, I mean, obviously Tomo's realizing that this family be built different, but there's just something so outerworldly, but like, they're just so sweet, you can't help but melt, especially when you go over to her mansion and she's wearing basically like a bunny onesie. It's just so weird, man. But the fact that you have on the mother's dynamic side, immediately pushing back against Tomo because she's under the assumption, oh, these boys always have naughty feelings. Oh wait, you have boobs, what's going on here? And then the misunderstanding. The fact that then she navigates towards Mizuzu, because the first thing that she does when she enters her home is basically stop her from hugging, and then she immediately removes her braid when it's pointed out that they're matching. I love the fact that when she tries to go to the bathroom, the mom like pretty much interrogates her, but then immediately just shuts her down. We see two power moves from mother and daughter duo. Mother, she doesn't even need to raise her voice. She doesn't need to discipline. She just shuts it down like you're just saying you're trying to just hang out with her for her money. You're such a silly girl. Immediately breaks our girl. And then when it comes to a challenge in a competition, breaks her physically there as well. This is a powerhouse team, and honestly, Mizuzu stood no chance. We finally found her kryptonite in this show, and it is the Carol family, I have to admit. And I thought that was well and good. I'm thinking to myself, as long as we get to see this dynamic at least one more time before the season's over, I'll be a happy camper. And then they had to show us Mizuzu's mother, which honestly, it was short, it was sweet and to the point, but it left an impression. Mom comes in, and the first thing she thinks is, oh, you're basically Tomo's mother. I don't like you. Oh, you're actually her daughter? Let me give you a word of advice. Don't grow up to be like her. And I'm like, okay, the savageness from some of these characters, and then the fact that she just immediately is like, I don't know what to think about this one in reference to Carol. The comedy direction of this show is just so good, because as I keep saying over these videos, the side cast is memorable. They feel like people, and even the more outer-worldly, like, what are we looking at with Carol? She's such a sweet and innocent character, all things considered, and she even breaks away from what I thought would be her direction of, she's an airhead, like, just with what we see in her day-to-day life. Turns out she's actually kind of a mad genius. She can just solve things without even showing her steps, right? I like the fact that they break away from those tropes and trends you're kind of initially expecting. The whole tomboy attitude of Tomo in terms of like at a first glance in terms of like poster and stuff. I thought I knew what I was going to expect with this show, but honestly, even that just really deviated and made her feel like an interesting character rather than just another archetype that I've seen in a show like this. And the fact that you can have so much fun with the comedy, with the cast direction, but still make them feel like people that are trying to help their friends. A character like Carol just wants to be best friends with these two forever, and, naturally getting pushed away by Mizuzu, it hurts her feelings, but she never gives up. So when they're talking about how Tomo wants to be with her even in college, immediately she has to agree that obviously our alien girl can come with her as well. So I like the fact that they're making them feel like they have their own identities, their own drives. But honestly, I have to admit, Jun is a character who's evolving past where I thought he was going to be. I mean, in the first couple of episodes, I thought he just didn't understand that Tomo confessed, and then in return, he's just kind of oblivious to his own feelings. But no, he definitely has feelings for Tomo. I mean, I keep pointing it out, there's numerous times where we see things that she doesn't, where you can see that he's uncomfortable or he's about to be embarrassed, but then he puts on the normal face. In this episode, I mean, he very much is awkward. He's a little doesn't know what to do because he's clearly attracted to Tomo more than just a friend. He slaps his face so hard there's red prints all over his face. You would have swore that Tomo slapped his face silly with how much he was marked up there. But no, he is thinking oh, she's taking a bath in my home, and oh, she's staying the night. They're both very awkward, and it seems like the general reason they're not a couple right now is that Tomo was under the impression that when she confessed, Jun didn't see that as a romantic confession, or maybe that he just didn't feel that way and wanted to keep it that way, right? But most importantly, Jun, as a character, is someone who is romantically interested. Most likely, he just didn't clue into the fact that she did confess, but most importantly, they both seem to be under the impression that if either one of them truly makes a move for Tomo, again, for Jun for the first time, then their friendship could be in jeopardy, and it's a pretty normal fear, but I think the way they're handling it in Tomo-chan as a girl is actually really compelling, and I find myself really embracing the goofiness, and they still find ways to progress things in a quick enough way that it doesn't feel like they're dragging out the joke for too long. Look at the sleeping scene as an example. After the night owls, as they might want to call themselves, I can stay up till 11:30, I can stay up to 12 a.m. Just goofiness all around. The fact that he's sleeping on the floor, she's sleeping in the bed, and then when she starts realizing how cute he is when he sleeps, he pretty much chokeholds her to the point she passes out, and they sleep together, and the chaos just speaks for itself. I like the fact that there's these general moments, and I think the cliche route would have been they kissed in that moment, they were building up to it. Instead, they did something a little more Tomo-chan, and I really appreciate it because it still feels like progression's being made, but they're still letting the comedy remain first and foremost, and I like what they're doing. This is absolutely one of the star shows you can watch this season, and as someone who loves rom-coms, I've seen more than enough to say if something I like it just because it's familiar. This really doesn't feel familiar. Everything about it is different, the comedy is wacky, and honestly, the premise is really exciting and fresh, and it's a short, sweet, to-the-point story, and I'm liking what I'm seeing, and as I said, I think this is the best episode. But thoughts and feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, ring that bell if you want to get as many notifications to the channel as possible, and as I mentioned, full live reaction is available on my Patreon. While you're there, you'll also get yourself a video shout-out. So, until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.